It's middle of the night. I woke up and I was watching the ceiling because I wasn't sleepy. And that when I was watching the ceiling, I remembered the time when I was little. And I don't know if it was watching the ceiling or not, but I felt like I was like a little kid. And I came to this thought that I thought may be interesting. The thought was about how we develop our self-identity, or you can call it like an ego. And as you may remember or not, I don't know, but when you're little, you have no idea what ego is, who you are, to be able to explain logically. So you learn how to use language, and in the process, we know who I am or who other people are, because that's the logic that we gain from talking with parents. My parents, your parents may have said, that's not good, or this is good. Don't go there because it's dangerous. So every time we get those words, whatever, with certain logic, we pick up how to use our mind. So one of the important things is to be responsible about what you do to live in the society, because the society requires those self-identity to function. And for that, we have to learn skills to use language with logic so that you can say, this is good, this is bad. I remember, this is not a nice story, but when I was little, I was riding a bus and I didn't have money. So I thought I'll just fake it. And in those days, I think the bus driver was picking up the money and I got caught. I don't know how old I was. Maybe 10 years old or something. And I was embarrassed, and the driver, I didn't have the money. I had maybe little money, but not the whole lot. It was perhaps 50 cents or some small amount. But the bus driver, I didn't know how to explain, because there's nothing I can do because I didn't have money. So I was not trying to escape, but I had no logic that if I can explain certain way, then they may have understood that I forgot to bring the money. But I was accused, and the bus driver said, you have to go visit here and there and do this and that. So later in the day, I remember with my mother, we went to the place, and whatever happened, she was with me, and I don't remember anything. And I don't remember if she said anything to me. She was very quiet, and that type of a woman, not to punish me or anything, but I didn't learn that, okay, if you don't have any money, you can explain, and they can give you, they can approve that, it's okay because you forgot it. But I didn't have the skill. I didn't have skill to explain. And there was a punishment, but she didn't explain much. So I think she was very accommodating, because I don't recall much of her raising voice but didn't teach me as much. So it's a long story to explain some small thing, but we developed those idea of what to do, when not to do, and if you don't have money, you may be in trouble. So that's the way of your responsibility we learn. And that's how we develop the ego. If you call it the ego, it's a self-identity. It's a protocol of how we live our life. And if you don't do things right as an adult, that person will get into trouble. And there's the case that legally someone did something about the investment of a company and have done something I felt not good. But I didn't say much. I just explained, and things went on, and it turned out that the person did some illegal stuff. And then I didn't want to prosecute. I don't like the legal process because it's like a fighting, like, war between man and the other. So anyway, the bottom line is that to live life, you have to play with the protocol, and there's a legal issue, and if there's a problem with that, you can do this and that. Then you go to the court or whatever, which I don't want to do. And I don't care much anymore about the money that I invested. And I cared about not to be in the dispute or cause the, accusing someone. So I avoided, but finally get to the point. So there's some things that's going on. But it all depends on how we learn how to live with the self-identity, to explain and not to do something violating the social construct. So it's natural that we have this ego or self-identity. In the world of animals, they don't have those, or as much as we do. So that may be only by the force or some such thing, so that this is a better society compared to animals. In a way, we can say that, but on the other hand, this self-identity may be abused or misused, and we get into the trap or cause that problem with other people. So that's why this idea of samadhi and be in the state of no mind and no self or no ego is interesting, as if to go back to pre-thinking world when you should be thinking about in the human society. So it's going backward to be in just living in the now. It's like animals' way. And then in relation to this ego, we don't see ego as important or don't think about anything, as if you go back to the 1-year-old baby or 2 years old or whatever, when you only depend on parents without knowing who parents, what they do, but they know the society's rule and we didn't when we were little. So it depends on how they teach you what to do when you are in this situation, that situation. And if there's a thief and someone who is used to violate the law, and if you are born in that society, in that family, then you, without any knowledge, you have to develop certain character that fit to that family, the way of doing things, and therefore, like doctor son or daughter become a doctor or dentist, and the thief and someone who does violate and drinking a lot, and whatever the habit parent has may be transferred to a little child. And there's no way of knowing because that's the reference you develop. So when we do this meditation, or to be in the state of samadhi, no mind, no self, and living like animal, we are basically going back to the Garden of Eden, or before our logical world to take place, or before the habitual pattern of doing this and doing that, and we develop that. Before that, or that to be revisited, as if I was watching the ceiling and looking up, and we were like that when we were doing this. I was doing it. I was just curious. I was learning, oh, that's an interesting shape and what it does do. So those curiosities we had become less curious because you don't think anymore about the ceiling. Except that there's this sense of wonder, curiosity. Oh. And that's the feeling that you remember even at age 77 almost, as I am. But it's an innocent mind. It's a beginner's mind. It's a mind with curiosity to learn or to relearn if we go back to the state of beginner's mind, of how to live in this life. As if to look at the situation with a fresh eye, like a little kid's eye, and question, oh, the world is interesting. So we came from that state of inquisitive mind to develop the skill to learn how to use and explain who you are, what you do, and how to be a part of the society. But some may do well and others may not do well because of the conditioning. And that condition is so difficult to change. So the habitual pattern of ego, self-identity, and whatever we like and we don't like, or some are good at singing or music or painting or not, when you learn those at the young age, that make a huge difference as you get older. You become a Picasso or Beatles, Bach, or musician, or the surfer, or also the politician, and or the murderer. So, if someone is responsible, one thought that Daisetsu Suzuki talked about is that, and this person did something wrong, then it's the society's fault that they don't develop certain skill, but it may be seen as parents' fault or whatever. But you cannot identify because you pick up the skill from anything. And therefore, meditation is go back to the clean slate to look at the world as if everything is new. And that's the beginner's mind. And when you are in that state, if you get there, everything is fresh, and you are inquisitive child looking at the ceiling or whatever to relearn. So it's kind of rebooting the system of the brain. Of course, it's not easy, but when you have a calm and quiet mind, you can get to that state, and you can heal all the wounds that was created by abuse, or you are not using the mind or the way as the society wants you to, or whatever. You just go backward to revisit, to recreate the mind of innocent child. That's what it is. So when you go through and, how do you call it, ditch off all the stuff that created the pain and suffering and all of the karma that we develop, but rather to start new, then this liveliness comes back. I'm a curious guy, just looking at the ceiling or anything like that. So in one of those videos, I mentioned that I was feeling like a deer when I was watching the poplar tree. And that was, I don't remember when, but it was so interesting. That was like an innocent mind. And that's, I think you can call it awakening. That there's new way of looking at, original way of looking at. And then with that ceiling or the star in the dark sky, or the poplar tree, or swinging branches and the flowers in the wind. Oh, this is beautiful. And you remember you get tired watching the ceiling and then go to sleep. Maybe that's what I'll do. Yeah. It's a hard life to live using the words and logic, and the punishment or the scheme is developed and being developed. Don't mean to be depressed, but take the fresh, calm and quiet mind, beginner's mind, and restart as if to go back to the Garden of Eden before eating the fruit of knowledge, and restart with curiosity, innocent mind, relearning how to live. Whew. Interesting, isn't it? What's the point of this? I don't know, I don't want to think. But don't punish kids easily. And I hope that the society, we all learn out of this karma of being born as human and ditching off all the problems that may have caused our behavior to be as it is, but can be refreshed with a clear mind. And to do that, I think in Buddha's case, he talked about the Eight Noble Path, or whatever, right thinking, right word, right watching, you have to do it rightly, as if to relearn in a manner that makes sense to live in the society as well as to live like a genuine heart kid with curiosity and not to have unnecessary fear or arrogance, greed, anything like that. Well, I think I'm gonna go sleep like a little child. The ceiling and the story of a night. Thank you. Good night.